about to roll in the shop for the last time as a four-wheel drive. And we're going to do about, I don't know, 3 feet of drop on it. It should be pretty good. So here it is again in all its glory. It's a little higher than it was stock because Chris and I took the motor and trans out, and that was a bear. And, you know, taking to the count, we both had the beer flu that day too, so that didn't help our productivity. But, you know, it's a good truck. It's going to be a daily K5, 84 model. It's going to get an 85 grill. It's going to get some 22-inch steelies. My favorite part, it's got the dual roof racks. Going to leave the big hitch just because. I mean, this thing won't tow anything, but it's going to be really neat. Going to leave it kind of patina. I really wanted an artesian blue K5. I found this one on Craigslist. Went and looked at it. Turns out it was not factory artesian blue. It was factory black and silver, which is probably the color combination I hate the most. But somebody's painted blue at some time in its life. It's faded just enough to be cool. So that's what it's going to stay. We got a 5.3 4L60. You know, it's a factory 342 locker truck. Should get some decent mileage. Should be fun to drive. But yeah, we're going to get started. And first things first, we're going to get this rear end down. All right, make sure the hat's square. So here we are with Andrew, E30 Life.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty simple setup in the back, hopefully. We're hoping it comes apart pretty easy. We're going to do just a simple flip kit to start, kind of see where that gets us. All the parts are going to be CPP parts. There's your flip bracket. That's where your pin's going to go to locate it. One of the good things that we did notice, or we are hoping for, is on these shock relocators. When you lower this, when you do your flip kit, you don't want to bottom this shock travel out too much. So we're going to lengthen that shock down right about there. And we're hoping that we don't have to, make a new upper mount for either side. But you notice how this side isn't the same as the other.
No, not quite, but they are different.
Yeah, a
so
little bit different.
We're just going to try it. You know, we're kind of shooting in the dark. We've done some research, and no one has quite done it the way that we are because, I don't know, we're just trying to do it on a budget. This is going to be a shop truck to show our abilities. And we're going to see if we can make stuff work without spending a bunch of money.
Yeah, sometimes not spending money is a good thing to do. You don't need to spend money to get the desired result every time.
No. It beckons back to the days of like hot rodding when you couldn't buy parts, you couldn't look on the internet. You know, you had to try things and figure things out.
Exactly. The first guy who figured if you flip the axle and you raise this axle center line above the leaf spring, who was the first guy that figured that out? Because I guarantee you he didn't use a kit.
No.
Yeah.
No, there was some guy that didn't want to, buy drop springs or didn't want to move the shackles and thought, hey, look, we could make a U-bracket, offset the center pin to make up for the, the difference in the center line, and that'd be it. So, yeah, we're going to start thrashing on it. Obviously, that guy's got to go because this whole area is hopefully where the rear end axle housing will sit.
Yeah.
We also have 2 different notches we're going to try. We have the CPP bolt-in notch, which is very mild. It basically gives you enough room to put a bump stop inside the rail. And then we have a set of 4-piece custom step notches that will go all the way to the cab floor.
Making it less practical.
Yeah, less practical because that's what we do. We'll have to cut here, cut this. It'll be an ordeal, but it's probably what's going to have to be done to get this thing hunkered down as low. I mean, I want to tuck some 22s at a static ride height. So we'll see. We're going to do it step by step and figure it out as we go and document it along the way. So step 1, let's blow it apart. All right, so here we are. We're knee deep in this. We've already got the shocks removed. We've got some of the leaf spring bolts, U-bolts loosened the leaf spring, shackle bolts, hanger bolts. So before we get too crazy, we need to get rid of these bump stops and brackets. Okay, as you can see, they're monstrous. We need all this real estate right here to get the axle up in the air, get this thing down low. So here's our fasteners. These are on by rivets. If you've ever messed with these, you know they are a huge pain in the butt. And we're going to show you a couple different ways you can take them off. We can start with like the most basic. So one of the things we're going to reiterate on this channel is you don't need fancy expensive tools. You don't need to overcomplicate this stuff. You don't need to blow half your build budget on equipment. So I have, and this is a professional shop. I do this for a living. Harbor Freight, $29.99. Get the coupon, 20% off of that. You know, just a angle grinder. Okay, so I have several of these. They're so cheap. I have one dedicated cutoff wheel, one dedicated flat disc, and I have a dedicated like cone style wire brush. That way you're not spending time changing all these out. You get one of those 3-piece Y splitters for your power cord, have all 3 hooked up. You can knock out floor pans, you can knock out projects like this. But we'll show you the first one. So cutoff wheel, you would come in here on the rivet head, and the way I would do it is you'd come in here across this way, go back across, make an X, and then you can come in here with a chisel. Once it's X'd all the way through the head, you can come in here with a chisel, knock off each one of the pieces, and that'll allow you to pry this off and pop the rivet through with a chisel. All right, so that's one way. You know, some people like to come in here, flat disc, okay? Come in here and just grind that sucker down to nothing. You know, that's another option. Same principle. You'll come in there, grind it down, pry that off, pop it through, or grind the remnants of the rivet off. Something really easy you can do with real cheap tools in your driveway. But this being a shop, we do have a little bit better stuff. I'm a big fan, oxyacetylene torch. I'll come in here, melt the heads of them off in a fraction of the time, and same principle, we'll pry it off, pop them through. If sometimes they don't want to cooperate, you can give them a little more heat, pop them through, or just blast them off. More than likely, this section of the rail is going to get removed anyway. This is where either the bolt-in notch or the step notch is going to go regardless. But we just want to show you, if you don't decide to go stupid low, this is how you do it. And this works for the same principle if you wanted to change your hanger. Some people like to lower them with hanger kits. Change that, change cross members, any rivet, you can do it the same principle. You know, like I said, oxyacetylene torch, PPE. Probably need actual torch glasses, but I don't know where those are right now. So a pair of shades. And if you don't know how to work a torch, they're super simple. 3 adjustments. You got the rough adjustment of oxygen. You got the adjustment for your acetylene, and the fine adjustment for oxygen. So you just make sure you start off acetylene closed, rough oxygen open, fine oxygen closed. Okay, so you always start it on acetylene. So you want to crack it. I don't know if you can hear it. It's a very slight hiss of acetylene coming out. Take your striker, bust it off like that. You'll see all this black smoke, right? Not enough acetylene, so you want to just tune it up. Keep tuning it up. No more black smoke, right? Nice and clean. So then we're going to come in here with our fine adjustment of oxygen and just real slow, keep tuning in. What you're looking for, you can see there's little fingers, the bright blue fingers. You want to adjust that down until they're nice and sharp. And that's when you know you've got pretty much the optimal oxygen to acetylene mixture. So you'll come in here on the head of the rivet. And before we get too carried away, also the paddle. So this is going to be the blast, right? So this is just going to knock the molten metal out of there. So you come in here, you want to get it real level with the head. So you're just really heating the head of the rivet itself. So you get in here, you give it a little heat, and you can watch, it'll get red, but it'll get this special shade of orange right there. That's when you're really molten it, okay? When it gets like that, just give it that little blast of oxygen right there. Little blast of oxygen. You just start working that head off. Boom, there you go. Don't mind the rubber pile, but that's how you do it. So one rivet down, we'll get the second rivet here. Warm it up. You know, you're saying, I don't know, there's an argument. I would say about a 1/4 inch off until the sharp fingers are almost touching it. Get that special orange color and just right there, work that off. Get all that rivet head gone. Alright, and then when you shut these off, fine oxygen first, acetylene. So you'll get that. And some people use a chisel and hammer. I have compressed air chisel. So you just come in right here, boom. So 2 minutes and it's off. So once those are off, you can see it still has a little bit of the nub sticking out. So you can take your air hammer. Sometimes these cooperate, sometimes they don't. This is an example of one that doesn't. Let's see if this back one has any more. Okay, so these particularly stubborn, not a problem. You can come in here, angle grinder, knock those loose in a few seconds, you know, get them flush, or break out some more oxygen acetylene.
All right, so we defined flip kit today. You can see right here, all you're doing is taking this axle and you're taking it from below your leaf spring and you're putting it on top. Got these nice brackets, they fit up nice. I think what Tim and I are the most excited about is this kit did come with a shock relocation kit like I was talking about earlier, but these actually worked out perfectly with this four-wheel drive frame. So like we were talking about, that shock mount is about 2 inches higher. And that really gave us all the space we needed. I mean, you couldn't have made it up. It was literally almost the perfect length, even a little short if you had to ask. So right now we are going to set it on the ground and tighten all our leaf spring bolts and kind of show you, what it looks like.
And just a note, make sure you tighten the leaf spring bolts once on the ground.
On the ground. It's got to be loaded.
Because if you tighten them in the air, you're going to have tension on the hanger or
on the bushing.
On the bushings,
yeah.
On the shackles, and then that potentially twists them and rips them and whatever. So
yeah, don't do that. Whatever you do.
Whatever you do.
Whatever you do.
So, but before we get too carried away, we'll show you the difference in the wheels and tires and what package we're running here. So as you remember seeing, this is what we started with, just your standard 6-lug, 15 by, I think these were 7s, just your Steely with, some 31s. This is your standard, go off-road most of the time until they wear out, but that's not what we're going for. Instead, we're going to do a slight upgrade. Here, 22 by 9 GM Transit wheel, and these we already painted them. Put some Struggle 55, the Instagram name.
It fits tight, man. Shit. There you go. That's how you know they're not coming off.
Yeah, there we go. So put some cap clips from Struggle 55. Got some dog dishes I picked up from the local swap meet. Gives it a whole new look. And on these we're running they're a 285, 35, 22 in the rear. The front we're doing a 265, 35, 22. Even though the wheels are going to be square, I did a stagger tire just to give it the stagger look. A little more meat under the fender well. Hopefully they fit. We're not sure yet. But time to pop them on and see what they look like. And here we go. This is much, much closer to my style. So we got the flip kit done. We got all the shocks on. Got the wheels and tires on the ground. Struggle 55 cap, clips. And this is what it looks like. This is the first look at the stance, at least for the rear. And it's going to be different. When the front end comes down, it'll change a little. But it's much better. As you can see, we have way less gap. Still have some gap though. So we're going to do a little trick. I'll show you guys a way to get it down a little bit lower. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm looking for maybe 3 inches, maybe 4 inches lower in the back. And we're going to get it down, and I'll show you a couple things that we can do for little to no money and make it lower. All right, so here's just a quick little look at what we did. Like I said, I wasn't real happy with the ride height, wasn't real happy with the clearance. So I got this bolt-in notch that I went ahead and welded in just for strength, and you can see through the other side. I made a internal gusset plate, welded in it as well. Doesn't give us plenty of clearance. When this thing is on the ground, we should have over 3 inches of clearance between the top of the axle tube and the bottom of the notch now. So there's the flip kit. Wasn't happy with the height. So I made my own lowering block. So it's a 3-inch block. That's a 2-inch wide, 3-inch tall piece of tubing. That was 3/16 wall. I boxed the ends. I drilled it for the locating pin. That's why I had to make my own. I bought blocks, but they didn't have the offset like the flip kit does. So made them, drilled them, welded them to the flip kit. Good to go. New U-bolts, everything nice and strong. And then for the shocks. So we thought we were going to get lucky and get away with not having to do anything to the shocks. I obviously don't have it up there yet, but end up having to make my own lower mount. As you can see, this thing is at droop, and you can just see the angle, how sharp it would be, and that just wasn't gonna. And that's like I said, at droop. So under compression, it would have to be a tiny shock at a very odd angle. So now this way, you can see we have a much better angle, and kind of more in the center of the stroke of the shock. And yeah, it's going to be a lot better. It's going to ride a lot better like that. And in the back, I modified the rear hangers. So factory, we had 4 bolts. These 2, here and here, and then 2 above it. Okay, here and here. And they went down there. So it was bolted here and here. So what I did is I took all that loose, slid it up, and used the lower bolts and put through the upper holes. Okay, drilled some new lower holes, all 3/8 grade 8 hardware, and went ahead and gave it a little stitch weld. So it's got just as many fasteners as it did factory, and it's stitch welded. I hacked the top off, still got to clean that up a little bit. Still got to do a little bit of cleaning up, a little bit of painting, but that's what it took for me to really be happy. I also had to come in, and you can kind of see it up there, had to cut part of the floor cross member just as a precaution. It gave me an extra 1.25 inches or so of travel so the pumpkin doesn't hit the floor. But yeah, so that's what we had to do. So back on the ground, you can see the final ride height. And there we go, final ride height. It'll go down a touch more when we get the fuel tank, maybe a little sound deadening. 3 or 4 folks piled in here, but I mean, that kind of shows you right there. We are tucking pretty much just the lip of a 22-inch wheel, with a, what do we got on here? 285, 35, 22. So that's the look. That's the look right there. It took a lot more work than we anticipated. Andrew and I, we just kind of rolling the dice at this, trying to figure it out as we go. And this is what we came up with. Cumulative, about 10.5 inches of drop from what we can figure. Flip kit gives you 6. The blocks were 3-inch. And then we moved the rear purchase 3-inch, but that only gave us about 1.5 inches of drop. And then we also pulled out the helper leaf. So I mean, I don't know. It's probably 11 inches of drop, but I am super stoked on that. So the back is done, notched, all the frames painted, all the bolts are tight. Now it's just time to start on the front. So until the next episode, see y'all guys later.